Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner into a Cardfight Vanguard deck profile for premium format. We're once again going back to the Eradicator well as the recent V-Clan collection got all of its contents spoiled. We got to see all the Narus bosses out of the set, and one in particular looks to be really good, which is Eradicator, Vowing, Saber, Dragon Reverse. Now in the set we also got Armor Break Dragon and Sweep Command Dragon. Sweep Command definitely looks to have some potential in premium format. I don't think it's going to do anything in V premium format just because his playstyle I don't think really works in that kind of environment. But you never know. But I do think there is potential for some kind of shenanigans with Sweep in this format, as you can bring back unruly dragons that you've intercepted with and whatnot. But I think this, however, looks to be like the best of the Narus decks going forward, especially in the current premium meta where Order Colony is one of the top decks in the format. Eradicators have a much better time against that deck than full Bronto the deck, so as a result, I think for the time being, this will probably be like the build you want to play if you want to have a really good shot of topping or winning some events, just because of the better matchup you have against bugs and the interaction that this guy has with Stunverse and whatnot. Because yeah, this card, some people have said, definitely seems like it's made to it's overtuned to make up for all of the weaknesses that the first Vowing Sword Dragon card had. And yeah, he's pretty damn strong. Like, I'm hoping that this is not the card that gets Stunverse banned in the format. I hope they don't ban Stunverse anytime soon, at least not until they print another Stride to make up for it, because like if Stunverse goes, then our Stride options get considerably worse, which but in any case, let's get into it. So for the starter, any V-Series starter will work. The card draw going first and second is pretty based. Then for the grade 3s, we'll just kick off with Eradicator, Vowing, Saber, Dragon Reverse, and yeah, I'm using my old Binding Force of Black Rings proxy SPs and whatnot as proxies for this, because I didn't feel like burning what's left of my ink on proxies. Plus, I want to flex these SPs that I got. Anyway, so Saber Reverse has 3 very relevant effects. The first one is you lock one of your rear guards. I think there's also a counter or a soul blast on it. I don't remember specifically, but I will definitely put the details up in the video itself. So you do that, you lock one of your rear guards, and you make your opponent bind a card from their hand, rear guard, and drop zone, which leads into a second skill, which is when your opponent's normal unit is bound except from the deck, they can choose up to 1 card with the same name as that bound unit from their deck and bind it. If they do, you give one of your units 5k until the end of turn. If they don't, it's 10k. So literally the same as base Vowing Sword Dragon's effect, except the first skill sets it up. And then lastly, the final skill is when it attacks, if you have a unit with Vowing in your soul or on rearguard circle, you can choose one of your units, and for Combat 1, Soul Blast 1, restand it. But if you're at 4 or more damage, you restand everything instead. That's right, this guy has a full board stand at Limit Break, and all you have to do is just ride it over this with another Vowing Sword, or just call it to rearguard circle and do your shit. Like, after you've hand ripped one, popped one from the field, and picked one out of the drop zone, and given yourself either 3 5Ks or 3 10Ks across the board on top of your other bind skills, you get to restand your cards. That's honestly insane, and that restand effect for your board is not once per turn, which granted for this might not seem like it happens very often outside of the odd overtrigger hit, but then you remember that Draconic Descendant exists and can copy the skill. And due to how the rulings work and all, if you ride Descendant over Vowing Sword Dragon, go into Stunverse Dragon, blow up the board, and destride, Descendant still has his copied names of this, so you can use the Vowing Sword effect to buff the board, then you can hand rip another card through the lock effect, and then you can use Descendant's own effect to force them to guard it. In doing so, he restands, and you've already swung with your board, Descendant swings, restands, but then they block it, Descendant restands, you swing with your board again, Descendant attacks again, restand your board. Yeah, that's a thing, and that gives you a very strong kill turn after you've already hopefully done a good job of pushing your opponent in, because, you know, you still have access to the stuff that I posted in the last video, Restanders and Execute Dragon buffing your board. Oh my. So yeah, Descendant is finally getting to the point where he's becoming really good in Eradicators as a whole. As once you start printing more strong Eradicators for him to copy, he becomes exponentially stronger. And don't forget, he also has that rearguard effect. Soul Blast 1, on Vanguard rearguard circle, Soul Blast 1 pop something in the front row, and then you can force your opponent, or do they have the option? Oh yeah, your opponent chooses one of their back or rearguards and moves it to the front. So you can't say, nah, you keep it at back there. So, but still. Yeah, Descendant's pretty strong in this. And then running out the Great 3s, 4 copies of Arena Esperadia. You could play base Vowing in here too if you want, or other cards, but I do still like the option of having a big beefy restander that triggers on Vanguard attack in case you're not at limit break for Vowing Saber reverse. Yeah, you're using a good amount of soul through this, reverse, and your Stunverse, but I think it's still just too good to pass up. And then speaking of restanders, guess what? More restanders! Cho-Oh, he's always very good in a deck like this. 4 copies of Zoe Chan to help maintain that soul. He gets big. Not much to say here. And rounding it out, 4 copies of Spark Rays Dragon in order to search for your grade 3s, your grade 2s, your Heal Guardians, your G Guardians, etc., etc. Then for the grade 1s, pretty much the same lineup as last time. 4 Demolition Dragon, 4 Nusk, 3 Mighty Bolts, and then that's it. I'm not playing the Eradicator PG. I just decided to opt for Draw Trigger PGs instead, just because I wanted to fit in room for the Vowing Saber Reverse and whatnot. Then for the remaining cards, 4 Strike crits, 3 other crits, 4 PGs, and 4 Eradicator heals, because I do think, let's see, so like you can also play Heal Guardians in here instead if you want that option. I just like the fact that my grade 1 and grade 2 and Descendant, if it rides over the grade 2, can fetch this, which I think makes it just as playable as the Heal Guardian. And also 20k shield sometimes comes up. And lastly, 1 Over Trigger, because Over Triggers are stupid in the format. Then for these strides, it's literally the same as last time. So 2 Stunverse Dragon, 2 copies of Executor Dragon, represented by this proxy of Zillion. Yeah, these are pretty much the 2 strides you're going to, and then finally like a voltage for game. I've definitely seen some people misplay in using this G-Zone over the last bit, as going to Stunverse Dragon when you can't bind 4, or if you're only going to bind 4 and 1 out of the hand, just seems like such a waste when you can just go into this and get your front row really big, draw 2, and like do multi-attacks. Like, if you have to actually think on what stride to go into rather than just tunnel vision into Stunverse Dragon. I didn't think I really needed to spell this out, but let's just say that some people I've watched play this deck are definitely not, how should I put this, good at playing this deck. Gee, I wonder who I'm talking about. Then for the G Guardians, wait, why am I talking about the G Guardians? I need to get to the rest of the strides first. Whoops. So, 4 voltage, 2 of the other one that you've just flipped a Stunverse Dragon, 1 VMAX, and then for the G Guardians, 2 Impede, 1 to 2 Bulwark. You could cut one of these things for the new guy out of the Premium Collection in Intercept Dragon. I just didn't bother to make a proxy for it. And finally, a Brahma. You could also potentially cut this for an Intercept, but I do like the fact that he's just an easy plus 10k shield on your first G Guardian in case you were not able to bind an adequate amount of cards from your opponent. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the deck itself. I gotta say, I'm really impressed with how Bushiroad rectified the flaws they had with Vowing Sword Dragon, perhaps a little too well, and created one of the strongest reverses out of the set, which is ironic given how Vowing Saber Dragon reverse originally was one of the weakest reverses. His effect was just too expensive, and the payoff was not worth it when you could still play the Gauntlet EDD deck that was running around at the time. They did him a little better in Zero by giving him that crit if he killed 3 or more cards on a turn, but even still, it just was not worth playing over EDD Gauntlet and Vowing Sword Dragon. But regardless, I'm pretty stoked to be playing with this deck once we get the cards out over here in the West. And I'm curious to know what you guys are doing with Narus out of the set. Are you going to be playing Eradicators? Are you going to try and continue to work with Full Bronto, or are you going to try and meme with Armor Break Dragon? I'm also very curious what we're going to be getting in the next set, because they're running out of Eradicators to print in this. Like, there's really Tempest Bolt Dragon as far as like iconic Eradicators that are left, and then maybe finally we'll get Brawlers into V. I'm really wanting to see them do it, because like the Brawlers already had like one of the best aesthetics as far as Narukami artworks go, and I want to see how Big Bang Knuckle Dragon and Buster would look with redone art. But in any case, that's all I got for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, this is BlueStar899 checking out.